thank you for this invitation. Thank you for this very interesting symposium, which kind of very much shifts my perspective about what's going on in this field of AI/science. I should say that I start to understand how the Schrödinger cat feels. I've been to many physics conferences as a scientist. I've been to many kind of business events as CEO of a company. I've never been in a superposition state on a physics conference as a CEO of a company. And that feels weird. Okay, so what I want to talk about today is only slightly about my journey in this kind of business world. So about 10, maybe more years ago, me and my co-founders, also physicists, thought that maybe our contribution to science will be greater, not if we publish yet another bunch of papers, but if we'll help to organize the scientific knowledge which already exists. That started a project that for a long time was an academic project, running as it's supposed to run on grants and soft money. At some moment, we decided that we had enough, and we converted to the dark side and became a company. And as a company, we immediately have to ask ourselves, okay, what should we do? What sells? And we built a system which is a reviewer finder. What's reviewer finder? It's a very simple thing. I mean, you all publish, you all apply for grants, both kinds of scientific endeavor, beginning of it and end of it, need reviewers. We are the company which can find experts for every document, whether it's grant application or paper in any subject, not only physics. And in this capacity, we sell the services to major academic publishers and funding agencies. How we do it is kind of not important for this presentation, more or less. We compare apples to oranges. We know how to compare meaningfully amongst themselves and to each other scientific concepts, research papers, and authors. And this allows us to build a suite of products, because if you compare concept to paper, you get a semantic search engine. If you compare paper to paper, you get a recommender system. If you know how to compare people to papers, you get a reviewer finding system. If you know how to compare people to people, you get a peer evaluation system. That's kind of more or less the suite of our products. What I want to talk today, though, is not that much about this journey, but about the thing which hopefully comes next. Being both scientist and kind of scientific vendor, if you want, I cannot help noticing that while we are doing kind of incredibly powerful and interesting things, we manage to do it in a very old-fashioned way. Our background, I mean, our papers are as if they are papers on paper. The way we attribute, give credit for the research, the way we disseminate the knowledge, it's all inherited from the 20th century. And this symposium shows how far this is from the reality of this world. And what I want to talk about today is few kind of potential directions to which I hope we can become a part of. So thing number one, dear to me as the person who serves the reviewer funding community, is a peer review hub. We know how to identify reviewers by expertise, but all of us who had experience with reviews on either side of this giving or receiving know that this is not everything. That a lot of things come from a personalia of the authors and of the reviewers and of the editor. Now, the hub is a place where all these people meet, where reviewers can say, I want to review that often, that much, for that many people, for that journals. Authors can come and say, okay, my experience with this review was positive, negative, etc. Publishers can come and say, okay, this person is a real person, this person is a real expert. I want to engage them, I want to give them back the credit they deserve. And most importantly, community gets reviewers' reward and recognition, something which is completely silent today in this world. So that's a step which kind of next step for us as a company, and that's what I hope is going to happen next. However, if you think one step back, you will say, okay, look, We are in this LLM world, when the first thing you do when you get a paper, you throw it into ChatGPT and say, summarize it for me. And that's absurd, because the best summarization of a paper is supposed to be its abstract, written by its authors. The fact that this is not the case tells you something. And you know what it tells you, because probably all of you have experienced this difference between talking to a person or reading this person's paper. These things are incomparable. What if you could talk to a paper? We have discussed a lot today about AI as scientific assistants. I want to speak about an AI golem, a fine-tuned, a task on my Jupyter notebook, mathematical notebook, overleaf document, which talks to me, like LLM can, but tuned on this particular paper by the authors. I don't want to exercise in creative writing. Sorry. I want to outsource this to an agent which does it much better to me. I want to make sure that this thing does only two things correctly. Tells about my methods, about my assumptions, about my knowns, and about my unknowns. And of course, as has been mentioned today many times, when it knows when to say, I do not know. Should these golems be realized, it of course opens a possibility for them to talk to each other. And then things really get out of control in the direction of the AGI. However, this pillar, this idea, brings yet another question, a question of attribution of research. Today, it's done in a very kind of binary way. You're author or you're not an author. Okay, you try to twist it slightly from 0-1 to a float, saying, okay, you are first author, you're second author, you're corresponding author, but this is all minor. If you want to do the real attribution, it should be much more, how to say, fine-grained than it is today. A technology which will probably be able to handle this is a typical blockchain technology. Why blockchain? Because you want to know the provenance of knowledge. You want to know different contributions of knowledge. You want an immutable transactions which can stay there forever and which can be searchable, which can be explorable. And then you want to be able to share your contribution, for example, with people who reviewed your manuscript. Today it's not possible, essentially, right? But they can get a fraction of your paper if they have been helpful, which is often the case. The blockchain of knowledge is the idea which kind of slowly grows in the community, the idea of the decentralized science. And I'm only touching one particular aspect of it. A very fine-grained acknowledgement of contributions, of different forms of contributions, especially in the world when this is mixed between humans and AI. Why this is important also? It's important because it gives possibility for people to really collaborate, to get together into a chat or some kind of form and discussing and throw ideas, which today is to some extent impeded by the publish or perish culture, but the necessity, like it's my work, it's your work, etc. So, wrapping these things up, given that there's 1 minute, this may sound like a far-fetched goals, at least some of them. They don't have to be done overnight. Nice things about this is that you can start experimenting and this thing will slowly grow, and those of them which are successful will actually become part of our reality. My startup experience tells me that this is possible. I also believe that we as a company are in sufficiently good position to try some of it, because we sit on a very large knowledge base of scientific articles, by proxy of the authors, of scientific concepts. We have our own ontology and the semantic technology based on it. And what's also very important, we are part of the commercial side of this ecosystem. We are providers of 4 out of 6 major academic publishers. The funding agencies, with our help, distribute more than $10 billion in grants annually. And this is a dimension which is also important when you speak about innovations, because these people have money and they very much affect how we do our research, as a matter of fact. So I brought this today to you because whatever would be invented by startups or by companies, you will be those who will be embracing it, and I'm very much welcoming your reaction to this. So thank you.